Okay, what's up everybody? This is Ryan here. So, I'm not going to be using my webcam today because the uh, lighting in here is awful and yeah, I'm just too lazy to get that kind of thing set up. But what I am going to be working on today is I'm actually just going to finish off what I was working on in the previous live stream, which is to finish the test-driven development process. So what I'll basically do today, I'm not going to actually spend a whole lot of time teaching. I may answer some questions if I feel like it, but this is more, I'm just going to actually take you along with my actual work here and solve some practical problems. And like I say, in the previous video, I talked about the architecture of this application and my whole test-driven development process and all kinds of stuff like that. Today, this is just let's finish off this feature and get the work done. So, with that in mind, let's get started. So where we left off is I implemented this test class, which involved writing these fakes, which are basically test doubles or mocks, as you often hear them called. All kinds of different words for the same thing. But in this particular case, it's something that I'm writing myself as opposed to using a tool like Mockito or Mock-K or whatever you want. So we wrote those. We wrote the test data class. We got the basics set up here, so we have some stuff that we want to do before each test is run. And like I say, I finished that video writing one single unit test here, and I did write it to the point that it was passing. So that's where we're going to immediately jump into coding, and let's get started. So what we have here for OnStart and where these things are coming from is I have this OurView event class, which basically lists the different events that can propagate from the front end of the application. And what I want to do is I want to write a test for each of those different events. Now, the important thing to remember as I had started doing this, but I thought I should probably just capture this on camera since this is part of the test-driven development process, for me at least, is that it's not enough to just test the successful path. So in this particular unit that I'm testing here, we ask the view model for an ID. We ask the storage for the hour data model. And that's an event which can either succeed or fail. The backend storage, although it's unlikely to happen, can throw an exception. So the next thing I'll do, now that I have the success case figured out and the test is passing, we'll move on to the failure case. How I like to represent these things is I'll write out an itemized list of steps which this particular unit needs to follow in order to work properly. And I'll use letters to indicate different potential streams of events or paths or whatever you want to call them. So this will be 3A. And for 2B, if the that'll be the event, and then we'll talk about how to respond to it. So if we fail to retrieve an hour object, which is just like a data model that's being stored on a file, if we fail to retrieve that, we actually want to completely abort the feature because we will not have the data which is necessary to actually draw the user interface. And so what I would like to have happen is to just jump back into whichever view or activity called this particular feature. So that's what I'll write here. So we'll say show error message and return to calling activity. So down here we have the success case. So I'm going to change this name to OnStartSuccess. I'm going to copy and paste it because I can reuse a lot of the stuff here. And then we will write the, maybe I'll say exception instead of failure. And then this will be the B case. I'm not going to do that for every one of them, but just so it's clear, this will be the what I call the A case or success case. And like I say, we've already figured that out. And then this one down here will be the B case, which is the exception. So how I'm going to actually make it so that my fake data source throws an exception is I'm going to say storage dot, let's see, how do I do this? So the first thing I need to do, I need to tell it to fail. Set will fail. Okay, yeah. So what we're going to say is storage set will fail. That's not visible for some reason. I guess this class needs to be, that should be visible. That's kind of weird. Do I have the wrong storage? Okay, so this shouldn't actually be the, that's the problem. This shouldn't be the interface name. This should be the actual name of the fake. Obviously in the actual logic class I would use the interface name, but this is in the test cases. So now I'll say set will fail true. And what that's going to do is it's going to make it so that this class, which is my fake data source, is going to deliberately throw an exception or return an exception to my continuation callback. What's up, Amit? Not sure if I'll make videos about Spinner or yeah, if you mean like data binding in particular, I'm not actually much of a fan of data binding. So I probably won't make tutorials on that, but we'll see. Okay, so I've set it up so that my storage is going to fail. And then I need to, since I've already got most of this stuff set up the way I want it because I copied and pasted it, we'll just have to make sure that the assertions are well formed. So we're definitely not going to be using a lot of these. What we'll do is we'll say, I want to make sure that the view calls show message. So we'll do that. And then I also want to make sure that we call view navigate to day view. Oops, that's not what I wanted. So these are what I want this particular logic class to do. It's just a representation of what I've written up here, show an error message, and then return to the calling activity. So that's exactly what we're checking. I want to know, does this thing show a message and return to the calling activity? Okay, so now that we have the unit written, the test written, I'm going to run it to make sure that it's well formed, and it should fail. Of course, it's all about how it fails. By the way, I've been getting some questions from people lately, which is all good and fine. I do want to remind everyone that I do have a Slack channel full of great developers where you can get your questions answered by other people than me, although I do try to help people as much as possible. Okay, so we've got an assertion error. That's exactly what I wanted, because an assertion error means it's failing here, as opposed to being like a compilation error or just a poorly formed test. So with that done, we have a failing test, and we can now move into the implementation and solve the problem from there. So just to remind myself how this works, we'll get rid of that. So our view logic is the thing that we're testing. We're calling onStart, and this is the case that we need to figure out. So we've already written the case where we successfully retrieve the data from the backend. Now we're dealing with the exception. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to say, There's a couple different ways I could handle this. I could make a helper function here, but what I want to do is so simple. I think I'm actually just going to code it directly in this, what they call an anonymous class. This is, of course, the callback. And I think all I'm going to do for now is I'm just going to say view.showMessage. I need to make custom exceptions, which I'll do later, but for now, we can just say showMessage e.getMessage. So we'll just show an error message to the user. The view will be in a fragment. So when I actually implement this method in the view, it'll be displayed as a toast message. And then the next thing we'll do is we'll say view.navigate to day view. Okay, now I'm going to hop back into my test and run the test again, and we'll see if it passes. One test pass, and Windows 10 is even letting me know via notifications, which is bloody annoying, but okay. Thanks, Windows 10. Okay, so we got that done, and it's passing, so we can move on to the next event. So the next event we'll deal with is, let's see here. We'll do on done click. So again, I'm just going to copy and paste this because there's no point in writing it all by hand. First thing, of course, in my process, I first explain things in simple language in a sentence or two. So when user clicks, I'll zoom in a little. When user clicks done button, save the data and navigate to the calling activity. So that's all we really need to do there. It's going to be pretty simple. Once I write a simple explanation of what we're doing, I will actually write out an enumerated list of steps here. So user has clicked the done button. So the first thing we need to do is pull data from the UI and, I should say view, I guess, view and ViewModel. I've got to think about this. Is the ViewModel going to have... I'm just trying to think if the ViewModel is always going to be consistent with the view, the way I'm structuring this thing, and I'm not 100% sure on that. Hey, what's up, Simon? Glad to hear YouTube is finally being nice to me with notifying my subscribers of my videos. Doesn't seem to happen very often. I miss the old YouTube. Okay, so I think what I'll do, so let me explain why I am briefly pausing here. So what I need to decide, I'll open up the UI itself. Oh yeah, I got to do the Gradle build. Okay, so what I'm trying to decide here is when the user hits this button here, the back button or whatever you want to call it, I call it the done button. I need to decide how to actually update the hour object. Now, based on the events I have here, we are going to respond to when the user selects a particular task, which would be this drop-down menu here. And we are going to respond when the user toggles one of these things. So I think what I'll do is when we write these units, which at this point I'm almost starting to think we should write first, but I think it'll be fine. I'll just make sure that we actually do update the view model. The end result of this is that we don't actually need to request any data from the view itself, which is probably a little better separation of concerns. So all that is a fancy way of saying we're going to get rid of that, and we're just going to pull the data from the view model. so write data to storage. This will be the success case. Write data, oops, that should be, okay, this will be 2A, this will be 2B, different potential states. This will be write data to storage failure. Now, that'll be an interesting situation. I think I'm probably actually going to handle these cases in the same way. So if I'm unable to write to the storage, that's not going to happen very often. If it does, there's kind of a good chance that there's some kind of a catastrophic error going on. So I have two things I could do. One thing I could do is I could just not really do anything and just display an error message. But the problem with taking that approach as opposed to actually navigating to the previous activity is that if the storage really is messed up and it's always returning a failure, I'm not sure why that would happen, but you have to understand that sometimes things like that happen in programs. Then the user is no longer able to leave that activity or that view except for when they restart the application entirely and it launches from the launcher activity. So I think what I'll do instead is, we're just going to show an error message and leave. So this will be a very simple unit here. So we're going to say, if it's successful, navigate to calling activity. And in 3B, the only change we're going to make is show message and navigate to calling activity. So it's going to be very similar to what we have here. Okay, this one's going to be called, I don't need that much space there. This is on done success. I need to make sure I update the event here, so this will be on done click. Okay. Now I don't need most of that crap. Let's get rid of that. So all I really care about here is, was get hour called? That's important. Was view dot navigate to day view called? And then we'll write the failure case. And so this would be on done exception. I will pre-program the storage to throw an exception. And then we'll add one more check here, which will be was show message called. I kind of jumped ahead and wrote two tests at the same time. But like I say, that's one of those things where I'm not so much of a TDD purist that I won't do that. Okay, so we're going to run that. And we have a failing test, which is what we're looking for. And now I will implement the unit. Okay, so on done, the first thing we do is we get the data model. I could make a variable for it, but I think we're just going to actually write it a little more functional style here. So we'll say storage dot update hour. We'll say vm dot get hour. And then what we'll do is we'll say we need to create our anonymous class. So I'll say new continuation of type void. On success will be, again, this is so simple. I'm actually just going to say view.navigate to day view. I could create a helper function, but there just gets to a point where following the dry principle or don't repeat yourself principle gets a little silly. Although oftentimes it's better than not following it at all. In the other case, we will, I'm just going to copy and paste this because it's going to be the same code. And that's it, I think. So I'm going to run the tests and we'll see how that goes. Cool. And cool. All right, those two are done. Next thing we have to do is we'll do on task selected. So what happens when the user selects a task? So that's going to be, like I said before, the user is going to select an item from this drop-down menu. This will look a lot better when it has the actual colors going. This is just kind of an uglier version of the UI. Okay, when user selects a task for a given quarter hour, update both the, actually I don't need to update the view after that because the view interaction itself will update the view. Update the view model to be consistent. So we want our data to be consistent with the user interface, essentially. So what we would do, so I need to actually think about what data is going to be passed in. Let me think about this. So when that thing gets selected, I guess all I really care about doing is I just want to know which task object it got changed to. Now, let me just look at how I actually implement this within quarter hour, because that'll be important. This is the actual data model. Okay, so okay, so this is actually an interesting problem here. So quarter hour holds on to pretty much everything that a task holds on to. In fact, effectively it holds on to a task object. I didn't really notice this before, but this is actually kind of important. So instead of doing it, interesting. Okay, we hold on to the task name. This is going to be an interesting little problem. So what we've run into is a situation where, so I made the decision to have different data models for kind of different purposes. We've got day and hour, and then we've got task and tasks. And quarter hour is, so a day contains 24 hours and an hour contains 4 quarter hours. And then I made the tasks quite separate. As you can see, I have iDay storage and iTask storage, and those are different storage mechanisms. Now, by changing the task, by allowing the user to change the task here, that means I can't, unless I actually request the task from the back end here, I'll have to be interacting with both data sources at the same time, more or less. So this is an interesting kind of structural problem. Because the thing is, my quarter hour objects do require the color, the icon, and the quarter, but I've effectively doubled up on that data. So there's a couple ways I could solve this. I could have the quarter hour hold on to a task object specifically, which probably makes the most sense. But then I am definitely in a situation where I need to be worried about whether or not both of my data sources are properly intact. Okay, I'm inclined to say that quarter hour will probably just have to hold on to. Well, let me kind of talk out what I'm kind of thinking out loud here. So what I'm trying to point out here is that look at this data model, quarter hour. We have task name, color, icon, quarter. These are all enums in case you're wondering what those capitalized things are. And then I have this task object, and as you can see, we have the only thing that's different is that we don't have a quarter here, and we do have the task ID. So within the quarter hour, I could include a task ID, but I don't think that's going to work either. This is very interesting. Hey, what's up, Z after Y? Yes, for whole viewers. I have some of the most advanced software content that nobody watches, and I'm totally fine with that. Okay, yeah, this is quite a problem here. How can I solve this? By the way, I have no idea why that says home. Why does that say home? Hey, what's up, Omar? All right. Okay. Just give me a minute here. Let me fiddle around for a second. Okay, so where is our spinner? I guess I just did that for some test data. That must have been what it is. What's up, Kareem? All right. Well, let me, at the very least, I'll try and explain to people the difficulty here. We have two data sources. So we have storage of day objects, storage of task objects, and these are different repositories. So if I open up the project viewer, you'll see the interface for day storage, the interface for task storage. And task includes like day, hour, quarter hour. And then, okay, I think I've got a plan. I think I know what I need to do. So, when I can't find my Android Studio here. When this feature starts, the manage hour feature, I need to actually load in a list of all the different available tasks. And then I need to hold on to that list in the view model. And so this way I can update the quarter hour on the fly and make sure that everything's consistent. Hopefully that kind of makes sense what I'm saying here. Kareem, this is Android Studio. I'm working on an Android project in Java. Java's not actually my favorite programming language, by the way, but that's what I'm doing. And I'm designing the presentation logic of the application using test-driven development. So that's a whole bunch of big words. If you want me to clarify any of that, then no worries, I'm happy to do that. So the main problem I need to decide here is task name sufficient to... Yeah, I think task name will work. So I don't think I actually have to change anything here. What I do have to change is I need to make sure my view model, this would be our view model, this thing will also necessarily need to be holding on to a list of tasks. So what I'll do is I first got to go to the actual contract class that we're working on here. So this will be manage our view. I'm going to update the view model interface. So we're going to say void set task list, and then we'll give the tasks data model. And then we'll also need a getter. Get tasks. So we'll do that, and this will have to get loaded in at the start. So now, because I just made an architectural change to the application, I now need to update the other units. So let me just get organized here. I've got too many damn tabs open. Okay, and let's get back to our test class. Okay, so what we're going to need to do is, yes, it is a mobile application for Android. Okay, so what we're going to need to do is update my tests that I wrote earlier. So we're going to get an hour ID from the view model, get hour ID, and list of tasks from the view model. This actually means that I need to add another data source here. So I'll say fake task storage. This one will get changed to day storage. This one will be task storage. This class will need to actually talk to that now, so let's update that. Notice how here I'm using the interfaces, very important. Oops, let's do that properly. Shift F6, this will be day storage. Yes. And then this will be task storage. Just fix up the constructor. All right, and this will be task storage. Cool. From ViewModel or repo that will get API from local storage? It'll be through the repository, if I understand your question properly, Omar. I use ViewModels very differently than other people. I actually use them as the name ViewModel would imply. It stores a model of the data necessary to render the view. Okay. Okay, and this will be task storage. Cool. Okay, we're getting there. I need to update these tests now. So we get an ID. Kareem says, I'm still learning HTML and CSS. Good on you, Kareem. Programming is not easy, but that's a really good step forward. If you have any general questions about programming, I can try and answer them. Okay, so we get a list of tasks from the view model. We get an hour, and I just need to make sure that that list of tasks is actually written to the view model. I feel like this test isn't 100% correct. This should say, so we call VM get hour called initially. And then I think we actually set it afterwards, right? All right, so let's just say I want to see set hour called. Do I actually even call that in here? So we go to on start. Sorry, I'll try and zoom in for everyone watching. On hour retrieved. Okay, so that was a minor mistake already, so it's good that I'm going over this again. And then we want to see set task list. And this will be test data dot get test tasks. Oh, okay. I'm goofing up here a little bit. Just 1 second. I'm going to go to the view model itself, and I've got to fix it up down there. Implement methods. Set get tasks called. And this will be, oh, I messed that up too. All right, set tasks called, get tasks called, and here then we return the test data. Actually, better yet, let's have this thing hold on to, so private tasks, we'll have it hold on to the tasks object. I can't type apparently. When we call set tasks, we will say this dot, I really can't type, tasks equals tasks. This dot tasks, there we go. And then I just need to add these booleans in here. Let's just copy paste. Okay, set task and get tasks called. Okay, so for those wondering why I'm doing this here, I'm verifying interactions between different software entities, different classes. So that's why I bother to add these things in here, is so that I can know whether these things are called or not. And then these are the things that I use in my tests in the assert statements. So I assert that get hour was called. Hopefully that's fairly easy to read. Okay, so that's fixed up now for the most part. Let's see what else I need to do. So we'll go back to onStart. So I want to see set tasks called. Okay, so that's what we're looking for. I think these will probably, why are these complaining? On done exception. Oh, I see why. What is this thing actually supposed to be called? On task selected. Success. Exception, whatever, we'll worry about those later. Let's get back to onStart. Okay. So Kareem mentions he's got a problem learning, uh, presumably a programming problem, which is indeed very complicated looking. Well, I have a cursory understanding of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and I'm pretty good at solving programming problems in general, but depending on the nature of the question, I might be able to help. Might be able to suggest some different approaches. Okay, so good. We've got a failing test. That's what we're looking for. I bet people who are like the beginners listening to this, they probably think I'm speaking Klingon right now. Okay. All right, so we go into onStart, and what do I need to change? So actually, we'll go into onHour retrieved. So the first thing I want to do is I want to make the VM dot. Oh, I'm gonna have to do some interesting stuff here. Okay, this is gonna get interesting. So first we will request the hour. Then we hop into this function down here. And then now I will have to make another request. So I'll say task storage.get tasks to get the list of tasks. And then we're going to create our continuation here, new continuation. And then, so once we retrieve an hour, then we want to retrieve a list of tasks. And so this is where we will need to, I got to think about this. So the first thing I want to do is I want to update the view model. So I'll say vm.set hour result. Then we're going to jump into another asynchronous method call. I'm not sure, unfortunately, Kareem, I don't think I could give you any insight on that problem. That's one of the annoying things about messing around with CSS and HTML. You get those really annoying errors which could be caused by something you've mistyped, or like you could validate your CSS to make sure it's well formed. It could be that you're not linking to it properly in the head tag, but I couldn't really give you specific help beyond that. I wish you luck though, and you said that was it you who said you've been stuck for weeks, or am I? Sorry, I must have been thinking of some other comment, but keep working at it. Those kinds of errors where you just get stuck on something for sometimes even weeks, every programmer goes through that. I haven't met a programmer who's spent more than 100 hours writing code who hasn't run into some kind of really annoying error that can't be fixed. I'd be inclined to say it's probably not the hosting that's the problem, but I don't know what hosting service you're using, and yeah, it's difficult to say. The thing that I would ask is, if you can like locally deploy your website, does it work? I'm assuming it does. Yeah, I've had that issue before and I can't remember. Okay, one thing, Kareem, one problem I ran into, we're just going to sidetrack from the Android stuff because I feel like doing my best to help with this question here. Kareem is asking about CSS not rendering properly on website, on hosted website. Here's one thing. I've actually run into this problem before. If the CSS renders properly in a local environment, So if you like deploy your website locally using some kind of, there's different tools you can do for that, and it does show up properly, but not on the hosted website, it is likely a problem with the relative, I think, URLs. So what I'm trying to say here is if the link to the CSS works properly, you can have a link to your CSS file work properly in a local environment, but depending on what hosting service you're using, sometimes it changes the URLs up, the domain and resources and stuff. And I've had a website not render the CSS properly for that specific reason. I'm not sure if that helps you, but just an idea there. Okay, so back to Android stuff. But definitely, like I say, I would worry about the URLs in particular, the resource locators. Okay, so we get the hour object, then we get a list of tasks, and I want to write that list of tasks to the view model. And what we can do, I guess we'll just jump into another helper method. That makes the most sense. On tasks retrieved. Now I'm wondering I before E, except after C. I hope that's retrieved is spelled properly. I hate the English language sometimes. Okay. All right, so we'll create this one. Now we're going to say vm.set task list tasks. Oh, result. That's better. Okay. All right, so we set the VM up appropriately, and now we need to render the actual view. So I'm going to pull this code out here into a different method. We'll shrink this one down. And we're going to create a new method called private void render view, or maybe I'll say draw view. That might be a little more intuitive. And the view model will be all updated, so I don't need to worry about passing in any parameters. We'll paste that in there. Yep, that should work. We'll say draw view from here. We'll need to get a hold of the quarter hour, so we'll say VM. We'll say, I gotta think about this. Result.get hour. Yeah, and I see what that fellow earlier was talking about with hour.getHour. That does look kind of silly. Okay, I'm just going to make a on-the-fly change so that that looks a little bit less stupid. So this would be get numerical hour, I think. We're going to rename this to, actually, let's rename this thing here, hour integer. And, okay, let's do that. That makes things a little less obscure. Someone pointed that out earlier, that was having an hour which has a get hour method is kind of stupid. Okay, so what we'll do, so I need to get the hour object itself. So here we'll say hour equals vm.get hour. Cool. We'll change this to hour. What am I trying to get in here? Integer.toString hour. So this will then be get hour integer. That's better. Good suggestion from, who was that earlier? Simon, who has probably left, but that's okay. That'll be hour. Okay, cool. So we do that. I also need a list of tasks. So we say tasks equals vm.getTasks. And then this is where we need to update the view appropriately. So we set the quarter hour text. Then we need to set the view.set quarter hour dropdown queue. And then we have, what are we doing here? This will be hour dot I kind of need to calculate this. So string task name. Okay. So we're going to say, actually, I'm being a bit silly. I don't think I actually need that here. So the hour will have the task name. So I can actually just, we can just say hour.getTaskName, right? Maybe we can't. Okay, hour.getQuarter, which is, okay, yep. And then we get the index. Okay, I think I can sort this out in my rambling stupor. So we get the quarters, then get task name. Okay, good. That should work. Oh, I already did that down there. Well, I guess I'm just an idiot. Okay, that's fine. So in the end, we didn't actually need to get the task list here. However, I will need that task list if the user changes the selected task for that particular quarter hour, which I do want them to be able to do. Okay, cool. Rahul asks, can't I pass the result in through a method parameter? I could do that. I just didn't want to have to pass it into this function. What you're suggesting, I guess, is a little more of what they would call writing a pure function style approach, which actually isn't bad. That's a reasonably good idea. The way I'm doing it now, if I have somehow forgotten to update the ViewModels state, then that would potentially lead to a null pointer exception. So the approach I'm using now is effectively assuming that I get my imperative programming done very well. So I'll think about that for a bit. Oh, there's a giant spider on my computer screen. Wow, that's annoying. Luckily, I don't have arachnophobia. Okay, so... All right, you know what, Rahul? You have convinced me that I need to better organize this. So, on our retrieved result, jump in here, vm.setHour, good. Get tasks, on tasks retrieve. We'll rename this to hour. We'll rename this to tasks. I'll remake this function down here. Let's just hit Alt. Enter, add that in. Draw view gets given the hour as well. Hour gets passed in. And then we no longer need to make that call. And the code is a little bit cleaner. So yeah, good suggestion, Rahul. Okay. Cool. So I'm pretty sure that's all I need to do. Let's run the test so that I'm verifying that. Okay. NPE. So probably, let's see here, on error retrieved. '84. So I think task storage was null. Is that what I'm reading here? Yeah, it looks like task storage was... Sorry, my brain is multitasking, so that's not... Okay, so I didn't initialize task storage. That's what the problem was. That's okay. That's an easy fix. Oh, cool. It's working. I'm not sure what you mean, Kareem. How can I drop access of my hosting to my teacher? I don't get it. I don't really understand the question. Did that have to do with deploying your website locally? Let me know and I can probably explain that pretty quick, what the kind of difference is. Okay. So interestingly, by adding in, that was a good voice crack. By adding in another data source, which potentially can complete successfully or it can throw an exception. Sorry, I gotta get this spider who's running around on my monitor. Just give me 1 minute here. There we go. Okay, so we have two different data sources. Both can either return success or failure. So this is the particular case. We go from on error retrieved into... yeah, we go into on error retrieved, and then we make another call which can pass or fail. Every time I do that, that creates a new stream of events, and that means I need to now create another test to represent that. So on start, we're going to call this one on start day storage exception. And I'm going to have to create another one of these, which would be on start task storage exception. I'll need to include that in here, retrieve hour from storage. This will just become step 4. I'll have to kind of rewrite this thing here. Okay, so retrieve hour from storage success. So in that case, we would say write hour to VM. This would be 3A. This would be 4A. Okay. Cool. This A, B, and eventually C thing, these represent different potential paths of execution based on method calls which can either succeed or fail. Then we have 2C. I'm kind of messing this up. Retrieve hour from storage success. Retrieve tasks from storage success. If that one fails, we go straight into 3B, which is to show the error message and return. Okay. Now I'm confusing myself with this thing. I'm just going to put let's put the A cases together so that this is actually somewhat legible. And let's see here, A, and then there we go. Okay. Then we got 2B and 3B. So in 2B, we just say show error message, return to calling activity. Cool, we're getting somewhere. 2C, actually this is 3C. Retrieve tasks from storage failure. Let's say fail. So in this situation, we have successfully retrieved the hour from storage, but our task storage is failing. That is a problem, and we're going to handle that the same way as the other one. So now we're going to do 4C, show error message and return to calling activity. And that's basically all I need to do. So I just need to code out this extra C case down here. I don't think I set this up properly. Get hour called. No, that should still work. Let's see if it does. Okay, that's working. This one is different. So in this case, it's actually the task storage that will fail. And I would want to make sure, so set hour would have to be called. Oops, set hour called. I would want to see that called. And then I think that's correct. Okay. Assertion error, good. I'll get to your question in a second here, Kareem. Okay, then we go into our logic class, and this is the thing I'm worrying about now. So if we fail in getting the tasks, I still kind of want to abort mission here. So we'll say view.showMessage, e.getMessage, and then I don't know why I control D'd that one. It's faster to just say navigate to dayview. Cool. Okay, that's fun. All right, I'm just going to take a quick break here. Maybe I will mess around with the webcam for a minute. All right, so I'm just going to run a quick commercial break, and I'll get to answering that question, and then we will resume. All right. As you can see, I didn't want to stream or do the webcam thing because my beard's getting pretty unruly, but all right, so let's just get to this question here. So Kareem wants to provide access to his hosting to his teacher. Oh, MIME type is not supported. Isn't a supported style sheet. Huh. So again, I'm a little fuzzy on the fine details of HTML and CSS configuration. Okay, well, assuming this, so I'm going to answer that question Hopefully I've articulated what you're saying properly. So yeah, you could just provide him with the login credentials for your hosting. So you would just basically send him your login credentials, which if this was like a school project, I think that would be fine. And then he'll be able to log in and see what your files look like. Okay, let's get back to coding. All right. So I've got the C case figured out, and let's rerun the other tests that I was working on earlier because things may have changed when you're making changes. Okay, that one still works. This one, I don't think this one will work. Oh, it did work. That means it's not properly formed because it shouldn't be passing. Okay, let's figure this one out. Okay, so this is on task selected. So user selects a task for a quarter hour. Update the view model accordingly. And that's where we'll end up needing that task list thing. I just realized so quarter hour needs to definitely not store the task name. It needs to store the task ID for sure. Because I just realized I could update the database, the name of the task, which is something the user is allowed to do, and then that would become inconsistent with the data in the quarter hour. So that's just a really important change that I need to make straight away. That just occurred to me. This should just be a task ID. You know, instead of butchering this, let's just use the okay, so this will be task ID. Yes, rename. That's going to be int and int. Okay, good. And then that's going to change that unit that I just wrote. So we'll have an error down here. Just one point, Kareem. I'm not sure how much of a beginner you are, but this is a really important thing that I pointed out here, that this is a really useful thing to know how to do. You might be aware of this already, but if I... Okay, so let's say I want to test my website. So one, I can upload the website files to a remote, so a web server or cloud server, whatever. All of these things are just a fancy way of let's do it this way. So remote, cloud, web server, all that stuff, which is a fancy way of saying someone else's computer. That's all that means. If you ever hear the term my data is stored on the cloud, instantly in your brain replace cloud with someone else's computer. There is no cloud. That's a stupid idea. Okay, so you can either upload your website files to a remote cloud or web server to deploy and test. 2, I can also set up a local web server on my computer to deploy and test my website. So you'll have to look up how to do this, and there's different applications that can do this. And what that would do is it would 80, I think. Sorry, just 1 second. What you would do is you would set up some kind of, you would deploy your application to your own computer, a server on your own computer, or a web server, and then you could access it using this localhost thing, depending on what port you bind it to, and then you can actually deploy your website on your own computer. I strongly suggest you learn how to do that. It will probably help you a lot. What I'm doing here in my Android work, where I'm actually running tests as opposed to actually deploying this application to an Android device, I'm effectively doing that. I'm testing the functionality of my program on a local Java virtual machine, this computer's Java virtual machine. So it's good to know how to do something like that. Okay, back to work here. Okay, so what we'll need to do is I'll need to select, this is actually what I was going to do before, amusingly enough. Kareem asks, if I give a link to the site, would I be able to see the mistake? To be honest, I'm not a wizard with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. I'm primarily a mobile developer, so I don't think I would advise asking someone else who writes websites in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript more often. I'm not the best resource for that. I know roughly how it works, but I just don't do it very often. Okay, so now what we're going to do, I've got to style that appropriately, and it has to be dynamic. So we say int task ID equals that, and then I need to say string task name equals tasks. No, not tasks. We say, okay, so I will need to actually get a hold of the tasks. Oops. Okay, that's going to be that. And then we say tasks, hour, cool. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll say task name equals, how am I going to do this? Tasks.get task. I kind of want to create a function in tasks. Let's go to the tasks object. We'll add in another getter here, so we'll say public get task by task name by ID. Or let's just say get task by ID. That's a little easier. Tasks holds on to a collection of tasks here, an array. Okay, and this will get us int task ID passed in. Why is that complaining? Oh, return type. Yeah, whatever. That will return a task object. We're going to say tasks dot, can I do my for each thing? Does that work? Can I do my lambda? I thought that worked. What do I got to say? Tasks dot, whatever, we'll just do the enhanced thing. Okay, yeah. So for task in tasks, if task dot get task ID equals task ID, return task. Cool. It's still complaining because good old Java. Now I can return null and potentially have a null pointer exception. Or I could throw an exception. So the problem here is, do I really care to entertain the possibility that this task object could throw a null pointer exception because it's supplied in task ID? I don't think I'm going to worry about that. I think I am just going to return null. $1 million mistake there. Because these task IDs are going to be fixed throughout the duration of the application, or at least they're going to have to be. I'm going to add a to-do. Let's do it that way. All right, to-do, consider consistency between task IDs stored in the day storage and the task storage. That's just something I'll have to think about, but I'm not going to worry about it now. Okay, so now we're going to say get task by ID. We pass in the task ID. And then we say dot get task name. Then we say task name. Boom. There we go. Cool. Okay, so that should have fixed that. And I forgot what I was doing just before this. So on task selected. So when a task gets selected properly, user selects a task for a quarter hour, update the view model accordingly. So what we would do at that point is we say, update appropriate quarter hour with new selected task. On task selected. And this thing would actually pass in the... What do I need to pass in here? I would need to know which quarter was called. And the task name. Another interesting problem. Let's see how I solve this one. So when the user selects a task from this drop-down menu, home is not a task. I don't know why it says that. I need to know which of these four quarter views, or whatever you want to call them, quarter hours, which of these was selected. And I also need to know which task name was selected. So I can find the appropriate task name by just returning the spinner item selection. But that doesn't solve my problem of knowing which quarter was selected. That's an interesting problem. So I could do I probably have to do this kind of a hacky C-inspired way of passing in both the quarter Yeah, that would be horrendous. I think I have to do that though. So this is an interesting little limitation of this approach I've been using. So some of you may have noticed, especially if you're a Kotlin developer, that I've been using these, what are effectively like sealed classes in Kotlin. It's a single object which is capable of representing different events from the user interface. Now, I have a method in here where an hourView event can store an object value. So we can store, say for example, the integer representation of which spinner item was selected. And we can store which of these 4 quarters was selected. The problem is that in order to do that, I would need to probably use an array here. I think an integer array would be the most logical solution. And then basically unpack and recast that array in the OurViewLogic class. So that would be kind of annoying, definitely doable, but it's just not a very elegant solution. So I'll think briefly on how to do that better. Well, you know what? Here's what we can do. I've made one of these event classes for each feature in my application. In this particular feature, as far as I know, none of the... I can specialize this class. Where did it go? I can specialize this OurView event class. I don't need to make it so generic in this particular case. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give it another constructor. And we're going to make a special constructor which accepts OurViewEvent.event. So it accepts an event. It'll accept a quarter hour, which is or a quarter, which will tell me which of these was clicked on. That's where that comes from. And we'll do a position, I think. Yeah, we'll do, I gotta actually look up, I haven't actually worked with Spinner in like a year, so I forget what the API looks like. I think it's okay, let's just see here. Spinners, get selected item, what's the method? Okay, so what does it give us? It gives us the position. Int position is probably what I want. Okay, I think that's what I want. So we will say int position. I could even make like a static function for this. That might actually be better, but whatever. I'm not going to worry about that. Okay, so quarter int position. Cool. So we've got that going. I'll have to add some fields in here. Quarter. This will be int position. And I'm just anticipating ahead of time that I will also need a, where is it? I'll also need a Boolean, because that will be what gets fired if the user clicks on one of these buttons here, these toggle switches. So I will anticipate that ahead of time and will include a Boolean. Is active. Okay. Naturally, that means I think I know how I can solve this. So we'll say this dot event equals event. This dot quarter equals quarter. Okay. Cool. In this case, if this constructor gets called, what we're going to do is we're going to say this, let's add these in here. This dot is active equals false, whatever, we don't care, dummy data. Then we're going to copy this in here. This can equal quarter.0. I don't really care. We're not going to use this one. Let's see. What's up, Johannes? Okay. You know, I'm writing some crappy code here. So I'm just going to do this properly because this is going to bug me. I don't want 3 different constructors which, and then just totally mess this up. Okay, so we're going to add in static factory functions here, or whatever you call them. So we're going to say public void get on public static void get on task selected event. This one will take in a that stuff I was talking about earlier, quarter, position, we won't do is active. I'll do that with the other one. And then we would say return new hour view event. And then we would say the event will be on task selected. The value will just be null. We don't care. That's not where we're getting the value from. This needs to return the hour view event. We need to say this dot quarter equals quarter. These can't really be final, so I'm just going to have to do that. That's fine. Not that bothered. Okay, and these. Oh no, I totally friggin' forgot. I can't do that because these would have to be static. Do I want to make the situation even worse and make those static? I don't think I do. Oh, when you try a solution and you end up making things worse. Okay. Okay, I can fix this. Oh, this is going to be terrible and hacky. Oh, I don't know what the hell I'm doing here. Sorry, folks, I'm getting a little tired, so if I seem to be doing some really ridiculous things, that's because I am. Private. Int position. Okay. Okay, and then we're going to say this dot quarter equals quarter. This dot posish equals posish. Okay, cool. And so we will invoke that private constructor from here. So we'll say, what do we got here? Quarter and position. Okay, and then we will make another private constructor. This one will just have that Boolean is active. Equals is active. And then we will say get on, this event is on quarter toggle, get on quarter toggle event. This one we're going to say that's going to have a Boolean is active. That's going to get passed in here. And I need to make sure that is that's changed in there. Okay, wow, that was a fun problem to solve. Okay. All of that was just to make it easier to deal with in this class here. All right. So I can't even remember which thing I was on. So on task selected rather. So the value we would pass in would be we're actually going to now use our static function here. So that's going to be our view event dot get on task selected event. The quarter, I don't really care. We're just testing it. So we would say quarter, we'll do just quarter.0, and the position of the selected task can be 0 because it's probably 0 based indexing. At least I sure hope so. Okay, and so update the appropriate quarter hour with the selected task in VM. So I want to see VM dot set hour called. I want to see that called. I need to I think I want to see VM.get tasks called. I'll probably need the task objects. I don't need to mess with the view in this one, as far as I know. I'll probably need get hour called. Okay, so let's be a little more specific here. So the user selects the item, and then I get that event carrying the quarter that was selected and the position that was selected too. So from selected position, retrieve the new task name from VM. That should actually be step 1. Okay. So we get the new task name from the view model, and then we need to update the quarter hour with the new selected task name. So that's the actual process here. I guess technically I do have to, let's do it this way. So this will be step 3. So retrieve old quarter from VM, quarter hour, I should say. Update appropriate quarter hour in VM with new selected task. Okay, so that should be fine. I'm just organizing this so it makes sense in my head. Okay, so we call that, and then everything should be good to go. That was lots of fun. Gajendra asks, can't we write unit test code in Kotlin? Absolutely. You can write unit tests in almost any language that's actually technically a programming language. I do prefer to write Kotlin, but this just happens to be a Java application. Okay, so now I'm going to run that, and it will fail. Oh, we got a compilation error. Quarter hour. Oh, I know what's going on. Okay, so I'll have to update this. So instead of doing task name, we have to do task ID. Oh, I already have task ID. Okay, let's use that. There will probably be a few compilation errors now because I did just change a vital. Oh, really? That surprises me. Okay, we've got a failing test. Now we jump into the implementation. And we can get started. From our event class, we will say event dot. Okay, I gotta add some getters now. I kind of don't like that these things might be null. All right, what I'm going to do, just because I could definitely get a null pointer exception, is false. Good old. That's why I far prefer Kotlin. I could just make these nullable fields. Like in Kotlin, all you do, you just add the question mark, or is it a? It's been so long since I've written Kotlin, I can't even remember. But yeah, you just add the nullable operator, and you're good to go. Here I gotta piss around with this nullable stuff. Okay, so we're adding in position and just 0 because it doesn't actually matter. Okay, that'll just make things a little bit less likely to throw a null pointer exception, and I'm losing all my stuff here. Okay. Okay, on task selected rather. So we want the event dot get event dot. I guess I forgot to add the getters. That's the problem. Why is that still not working? That's annoying. Oh, I see what I did. Get quarter event dot get position, and then we jump into the helper function. Okay, and what did I say we're going to do? So we're going to get the tasks from the view model. Okay, we select the appropriate task ID. So we would say hour equals vm.getHour. What we would do next, we're going to say int task ID equals tasks dot get tasks, which returns an array. Then we use the position zero. We need to get the task ID. Okay. And then, so we've got the appropriate task ID. Now we need to create a new hour object. Hour, new hour equals new hour. We use most of the data from the old one, so we need quarters. Okay, this is going to be annoying. Well, definitely we'll do the hour dot get hour integer. Okay, so now we need to create a new list of quarters. Correct. Just make sure I have my types correct. Yes, array of quarter hours, new quarters equals new array thingy with 4 items. Okay, this is some fun code. All right. Oh, I wonder if I can do this a different way. I just realized the elements, even though the quarter hour array, even though this array itself is final, I recall, because I am an expert in Java, that the elements of a final array are themselves not immutable. So I think I can create a simpler solution here. I think what we can do is we select for the quarter. Okay, let's do it this way. We select for the quarter. Oh, my brain's getting tired, so hopefully I can figure this out. Okay. I got to go into the think tank for this one. So the goal is I want to update one single quarter hour from the collection. I think what I can do, and we'll see if this works or not. Okay, this should work. So we're going to say quarter hour, new QH, because even I'm tired of typing long ass names, so whatever, new quarter hour, equals tasks dot hold on. Okay, we get the old one. So we say old quarter hour equals tasks dot no, I'm confusing myself. Hour dot get quarters, which is an array. Then we return the position. Okay. So we get the old one. And then I'm going to say hour dot, we're going to repeat that. Hour dot get quarters equals new quarter hour And it'll have everything the old one had, except the task ID will be different. So we give it task ID. We give it the oh boy. No, that's okay. That's okay. All right. Old quarter hour dot get color get icon get quarter old quarter hour dot get is active. Okay, so we update that particular. What I was going to do before is I was going to like loop through these things and kind of update them that way, but I think I can get away with doing that, but I'll just have to verify that this is working properly. And how I can verify that is I can actually use the debugger, set breakpoints, and then I can step through the actual state of the array, and from there I can just verify that everything's getting updated appropriately. Okay, once that's done, I should be able to then say the new hour is equals old hour. Do I have that here? I've got so much stuff going on here. Okay, so it's just called hour. Okay, so we say hour dot get quarters, which should be up to date now. Hopefully, I'll have to verify that. In fact, let's add a to-do. Ensure this state is properly updating the underlying data. Okay, we get the new hour. I don't actually even need to say hour new hour. We can just say vm.set hour, and then we can pass in this code here. Okay, and maybe, just maybe, that will work. Now I'm wondering, why didn't I need... Something's wrong here. I don't select quarters by position. That's wrong. I would select the task ID by position. Wow, what have I done here? Oh, yeah. Okay. I think I need another coffee. Yeah, something seems horribly wrong here. Tasks.get tasks. So we get the first task. So this needs to be position. I don't know why I wrote a 0 there. That doesn't make any sense. The quarter would be what we passed in here. I might need to have a switch case then, because I don't think I can... All right, what I've got to do is I've got to say... get quarters dot... Oh, that's not what I want. I guess I've got to manually... Good old Java. I miss Kotlin's for each. Okay, hour dot... So for quarter hour Q okay, cool. So for quarter hour Q, we get the quarter hour here. We say if Q dot get quarter equals quarter, Q equals old quarter hour. Okay. Why is that not working? Might not have... Oh, I mixed them up. Well, I can tell I'm getting tired when I start making mistakes like that. Okay. And now I got to figure out the rest of this thing. Who would have thought this would be such a complicated little unit? Okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm selecting the appropriate quarter hour based on the yeah. All right, you know what? I think what I'm gonna have to do, it's time for me to make another coffee because my brain is jamming up here, and it's gonna require a little bit of thinking just to sort out this mess that I've created. I'm fitting to make some helper functions and just properly sort this out. So anyways, I've been streaming for probably over 2 hours now. Oh, just shy of 2 hours. So I'm going to call it a day there. And I don't plan to do a whole lot more streaming of this particular application. Probably what I'll do, I'm going to just finish it off soon and I'll make some tutorials based on it and we can kind of do it that way. I just thought I would try and finish off the units that I didn't finish in the earlier video, but classic programming, everything takes longer than you think it will take, so it is what it is. So that's going to be it for today. Thank you for watching and I'll see you later.